Bro, let me tell you one of the craziest stories in history, the Great Depression. Imagine living in the roaring 20s. Parties everywhere, jazz music shaking every room, fancy clothes, loud energy, and people feeling unstoppable. Then suddenly, only a few years later, you're standing in a bread line with empty pockets wondering what just happened to your life savings. That's how fast things collapsed. And this disaster didn't just stay in America. It spread across the whole world like a bad rumor and eventually played a part in setting the stage for World War II. Most people think the Great Depression just appeared out of nowhere, but trust me, the story behind it is wild. The whole madness begins in 1918. World War I ends and American soldiers return home as heroes ready to enjoy normal life again. Meanwhile, women had entered the workforce for the first time while men were away, and the economy started booming the moment peace arrived. This energy, mixed with huge cultural change, created the ultimate party era, the Roaring Twenties. Detroit became the center of innovation thanks to Henry Ford, who introduced the Model T and basically changed the way humans travel. His assembly line idea lowered the car price from $780 to around $290, making it the world's first affordable flex. By 1927, Ford had sold 15 million of these cars. And just like today, when one company does something cool, everyone else copied. Radios, washing machines, vacuum cleaners, all rolled out of assembly lines at lightning speed. With mass production exploding and radio ads convincing every household to buy something, America entered the era of wild consumerism. People didn't just want the newest gadgets, they needed them. Banks saw this excitement and said, "Hey, want a loan? Here, take one." So people started buying everything on credit with money they didn't even have yet. Life during this time was pure chaos in the best way. Jazz music everywhere, parties every night, and prohibition was supposed to stop alcohol, but honestly, it just made drinking more creative. Speakeasies were full, morals got looser, and Wall Street became the new Disneyland. From 1921 to 1929, the stock market went up 6 times. 6! Imagine your investments doing that. You'd brag nonstop. Everyone jumped into stocks. Neighbors, farmers, teachers, barbers, literally everyone. As more people joined, prices kept going up simply because everyone believed they had to keep going up. Logic? Fundamentals? Those took a vacation. People even borrowed money to buy more stocks, sometimes putting down only 10% and taking loans for the rest. It was the ultimate financial YOLO moment. But beneath all that glitter and champagne, something was quietly going wrong. By the mid-20s, the actual demand for products slowed because Europe was still trying to recover from World War I and couldn't afford America's fancy new inventions. Global trade was weakening, but people didn't care. Everyone still believed the stock market would break records every year. Greed was thicker in the air than the smell of cigarette smoke at a club. And margin trading, which allowed people to buy stocks using mostly borrowed money, pushed everything even higher. People literally went to banks and said, "Yo, I need a loan." For what? To buy stocks. And banks said, "Sure, there you go." So by 1929, around 40% of all consumer borrowing in the US was just people gambling on stocks. Even the new president, Herbert Hoover, confidently announced that America was close to ending poverty forever. Yeah, that aged badly. Then came the plot twist. October 24th, 1929, a day known as Black Thursday. The stock market suddenly panicked. People rushed to sell, and a record 12.9 million shares changed hands while prices fell 11% in a single day. This was just the beginning. The following Tuesday, known as Black Tuesday, it fell another 12% with even more shares traded. Within 2 weeks, stocks lost nearly a third of their value. People who borrowed money for stocks were crushed. Many lost everything. But believe it or not, the stock market crash wasn't even the main disaster. It was just the opening act. The real monster hiding behind the curtain was the banking system. At the time, American banks were mostly small local shops with zero safety nets. They lent a ton of money to people for stock speculation. When stocks collapsed, these loans defaulted and banks failed overnight. People panicked when they heard rumors about failing banks, so they rushed to withdraw their savings. This created massive bank runs. One famous example happened when a rumor spread that the Bank of the United States refused to sell a man's stock. That tiny rumor brought out 25,000 worried customers in one day, causing $3 million to vanish from the bank. The bank collapsed, and that single failure accounted for 1/3 of all deposit losses during the Depression. As fear spread, more banks collapsed. Around 1/3 of all U.S. banks failed. And because people didn't trust banks anymore, they hid money under mattresses. Between 1929 and 1933, the U.S. money supply dropped 31%. Which caused severe deflation. Deflation sounds innocent, prices going down, but it's like poison for the economy. When money becomes more valuable, people stop spending, businesses stop investing, debts become harder to repay, and wages fall. Everything spirals downward. And through all this chaos, the Federal Reserve did absolutely nothing. They didn't step in, they didn't rescue banks, they didn't stop the shrinking money supply. This is considered one of the biggest economic mistakes ever. Meanwhile, President Hoover struggled to figure out what to do. After the crash, the country demanded stronger protectionist policies, so in 1930, he signed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, which raised U.S. tariffs by 20% to protect American farmers and industries. But instead of helping, it backfired terribly. Over 20 other countries retaliated with their own tariffs. Global trade collapsed by 66% between 1929 and 1934. It was like trying to fix a leak by punching a bigger hole in the pipe. The Great Depression lasted more than a decade and became the worst economic disaster in modern history. The Dow fell 90% from its peak. More than 9,000 banks failed, 9 million savings accounts evaporated, factories closed, unemployment soared to nearly 25%, and like a final insult from nature, the Dust Bowl hit the central U.S. Huge dust storms and droughts destroyed farms and made the misery even worse. About 30% of Americans were still in agriculture, so this was devastating. Homelessness spread everywhere. Bread lines stretched around city blocks. People built shanty towns called Hoovervilles after the president they blamed for everything. In 1932, Franklin Roosevelt was elected president, and he came in swinging with the New Deal, a huge package of reforms designed to rescue the country. He brought in minimum wage, overtime pay, unemployment insurance, Social Security, bank deposit insurance, and the SEC to regulate the stock market. Slowly, confidence returned. The banking system stabilized, but the economy didn't fully recover until the U.S. entered World War II in 1939. The massive government spending and industrial mobilization finally pulled America out of the Depression and pushed unemployment below 10%. Economists still debate how much the New Deal helped and how much was due to the war effort. But the lessons from the Great Depression shaped modern economics. Keep inflation steady, prevent deflation, regulate banks, support the economy during recessions, and avoid letting greed and speculation run wild. Depression happened because people believed stocks could only go up, banks lent recklessly, and warnings were ignored. And like all bubbles, it ended the same way, with a brutal crash. If I told this whole story to you over coffee, I'd lean back at the end and say, see, this is why we pay attention to history. Humans keep doing the same thing, and the economy keeps saying, bro, stop. If you ever want another wild economic story, just ask.